sat at her desk, staring at numbers on her computer screen. Coffee grew cold in the cup beside her keyboard. The small office felt cramped, with metal walls and a single window showing stars outside. She worked alone most days, reading reports about trade deals and cargo shipments. Nothing exciting ever happened at the human diplomatic station. The door chimed. Walked in carrying a stack of papers. He was young, maybe 25, and always looked worried about something. Today he looked more worried than usual. "Ambassador, we're getting a priority transmission from the Galactic Council," he said. His voice shook a little. Looked up from her screen. "What do they want now? More complaints about our shipping routes?" "I don't think so. They're requesting a formal diplomatic channel. All 12 Inner Circle members are online." That made raise an eyebrow. The Inner Circle never met together unless something big was happening. Wars, invasions, or major trade disputes. She saved her work and pushed back from the desk. "Put them through to the main screen," she said. The wall screen flickered to life. 12 alien faces appeared in a grid pattern, recognized most of them from her training files. High Counselor sat in the center position. His crystal body caught light from his ship's bridge, creating rainbow patterns across his face. Around him, the other council members looked serious and angry. "Ambassador's voice came through the speakers like breaking glass. "We have reached the end of our patience with humanity's expansion." Picked up her coffee cup and took a sip, still warm enough. "Good morning to you too, Counselor. What seems to be the problem?" "The problem is your species' continued occupation of contested star systems. The sector, the colonies, and 17 other regions that rightfully belong to council members." Set down her cup and looked at the screen. The other ambassadors on the call looked terrified. She could see sweat on the Terran colony representative's face. The delegate kept fidgeting with his hands. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been a misunderstanding," said. "Those systems were unclaimed when our people arrived. We followed all the proper procedures for colonization." Counselor leaned forward. Her insect-like features clicked together when she spoke. "Your procedures are not recognized by this council. We have voted unanimously. You have 72 standard hours to withdraw all human presence from these systems." "And if we don't?" asked. She sounded curious, like someone asking about the weather. His crystal body flared brighter. "Then you will face the combined military might of the Galactic Council. 47,000 warships stand ready to enforce our decision." Made a choking sound behind. She glanced back at him with a small smile. 47,000, she repeated. "That's quite a lot." "It is more than enough to destroy every human ship and station in this galaxy," Admiral growled from his position on the screen. The reptilian warrior's scales rippled with anger. "Your pathetic fleet of 30 vessels will not save you." Nodded slowly. She picked up a pen from her desk and clicked it a few times, thinking. The council members waited for her response. Some looked eager, others nervous. They had never threatened a species with complete destruction before. Most civilizations begged for mercy at this point. "Well," said finally, "this is certainly unexpected news." She stood up and walked to the small kitchen area in the corner of her office. The council members watched in confusion as she started making fresh coffee. The machine hummed quietly while she measured grounds and added water. "Ambassador," said, his voice rising, "do you understand what we have told you? This is an ultimatum. Your species faces extinction if you do not comply." "I heard you," called from the kitchen. 72 hours, withdraw from contested systems, or face 47,000 warships. Did I miss anything?" "You missed the part where you're supposed to be scared," Admiral snarled. Returned to her desk with a fresh cup of coffee. She sat down and took a sip, then smiled at the screen. "Would anyone else like some coffee? I have plenty." The silence stretched for several seconds. Could hear the hum of ship engines through the communication link. Several council members looked at each other in confusion. "Coffee?" clicked. We have just threatened your entire species with annihilation and you offer us coffee." "It's good coffee," said. "Earth blend, medium roast, though I suppose you need to be here to try it." His crystal body pulsed with angry light. "This is not a social gathering. We are delivering a formal declaration of war." "Oh, I understand perfectly," said. She pulled up her calendar on the computer screen. 72 hours from now would be Thursday afternoon, correct? That's a bit inconvenient. I have a meeting with the Merchant Guild about grain shipments. Could we possibly move your deadline to Friday morning? I'll be much more available then." Stared at like she had lost her mind. The council members looked equally stunned. Admiral's jaw hung open, showing rows of sharp teeth. "You cannot reschedule a declaration of war," shrieked. Shrugged. "It's just a request. If Thursday works better for your schedule, I understand. I'll see what I can do to clear my calendar." She made a note on a piece of paper, then looked back at the screen. "Is there anything else? I really should get back to these trade reports before lunch." The council members stared at her in complete silence, waited patiently, sipping her coffee, finally found his voice. "We will contact you again in 72 hours for your final answer," he said. "Looking forward to it," replied. "Have a wonderful day, everyone." The screen went black, stood frozen behind his chair, his mouth hanging open. "Ambassador," he whispered, "did you just dismiss the Galactic Council?" Turned back to her computer and opened a new file. "I told them I'd get back to them after lunch," she said. "Now, where did I put that grain shipment report?" She started humming an old song from Earth while she typed. Continued to stare at her, wondering if his boss had completely lost her mind or if she knew something he didn't. High Counselor paced across the command bridge of his flagship. His crystal feet clicked against the metal floor with each step. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of 47,000 ships spread across 12 star systems. The largest military force ever assembled in galactic history waited for his orders. "Reports," he commanded. Admiral's image appeared on the main screen. The reptilian warrior looked frustrated. "All fleets are in position, High Counselor. We can begin the attack at your command." And the human response? Scales darkened. Nothing. Their ships continue normal patrol routes. No defensive formations, no fleet movements, no emergency broadcasts. It's like they don't even know we're here. Stopped packing. In 3,000 years of Council history, no species had ever ignored a formal ultimatum. Even the mighty Empire had sent desperate ambassadors to beg for terms before their destruction. "Perhaps they are paralyzed with fear," suggested Counselor. Her insect features twitched nervously. "Some species simply shut down when faced with overwhelming force." "Or perhaps they are incredibly stupid," growled Admiral. "My intelligence reports show they have exactly 31 combat vessels. Ancient designs, primitive weapons, no energy shielding. We could destroy their entire fleet with a single battle group." Counselor of the Ethereal Collective floated forward. His energy body glowed pale blue as he spoke. "Something feels wrong about this situation." The human ambassador showed no fear, no surprise, no anger. She acted like we had asked about the weather. "She offered us coffee," Admiral spat. "Coffee, while we declared war on her species." Resumed his packing. He had led the Council through dozens of conflicts, but never against humans. The species was new to galactic politics, having made first contact only 5 years ago. Their technology seemed primitive, their military laughable, their territory small. On paper, they should be easy to defeat. But something nagged at the back of his crystal mind. A memory from his youth when he was just a junior diplomat. The Void Walkers had been like this once. Calm, confident, seemingly weak. They had dismissed Council threats with polite smiles and gentle words. Then they had vanished an entire invasion fleet without a trace before disappearing beyond the galactic rim. "Admiral, what do we know about human military doctrine?" he asked. Pulled up files on his screen. Very little. They seem to prefer small, fast ships over large battle cruisers. Their weapons are kinetic rather than energy-based. Primitive missile systems, chemical explosives, metal projectiles. Nothing that could threaten our shields. What about their ground forces? Even more primitive. They still use gunpowder weapons and metal armor. No energy weapons, no particle shields, no gravity manipulation. By our standards, they're fighting with stone tools. Counselor of the Hive Worlds clicked his mandibles together. Perhaps we are overthinking this. Sometimes the simple explanation is correct. They are a young, weak species that does not understand the reality of their situation. Then why aren't they running? Asked. Why haven't they sent more ambassadors to negotiate? Why is their diplomat drinking coffee instead of preparing for evacuation? Nobody had an answer for that. The communication officer interrupted their discussion. High Counselor, we're receiving a transmission from the human diplomatic station. Put it through. Appeared on screen. She sat in the same office as before, but now several other humans were visible around her. They seemed to be playing some kind of card game at a small table. Good evening, Counselor, she said cheerfully. I hope you don't mind the interruption. We're having our weekly poker game and one of my guests had a question. Looked closer at the other humans. One wore the uniform of a merchant captain. Another had the markings of a trade representative. A third displayed the colors of the hegemony commercial fleet. What kind of question? Asked carefully. Gestured to the merchant captain. Captain here says his shipping company has received some unusual orders. Apparently, several council military units have requested emergency food supplies for extended operations. He wanted to know if this was related to the field exercise everyone's talking about. Field exercise, Admiral's voice came from off-screen. That's what we've been calling it, said. 47,000 ships gathering for maneuvers. Must be quite a sight. Captain was wondering if you needed any additional supplies. His company specializes in long-range logistics. Felt a chill run through his crystal body. The humans knew exactly how many ships the council had assembled. They weren't afraid because they had been watching, counting, preparing. We require no assistance from human merchants, he said carefully. Of course not, agreed. Though if you change your mind, Captain offers very competitive rates. He's been running supplies to council fleets for 3 years now. Excellent safety record. 3 years. The human merchant had been trading with council military units for 3 years, watching their operations, learning their procedures, mapping their supply lines. Is there anything else you needed? Asked. The next hand is about to start and I'm having a good night. Cut the transmission without responding. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ship systems. Admiral, he said slowly, how many human merchants currently hold contracts with our military forces? Worked at his console for several minutes. His scales gradually turned pale as he read the results. Hundreds, he said quietly. Food suppliers, fuel transporters, equipment manufacturers, maintenance crews. Some of them have been working with us since first contact. And civilian contractors. More typing. Scales went completely white. Medical technicians, computer specialists, communications experts, even janitorial services. They're everywhere, High Counselor. Every major fleet base, every supply depot, every command center has human personnel with full access. Counselor made a sound like breaking twigs. They've been watching us, learning everything about our military capabilities. For 5 years, added, his energy form flickering with agitation. 5 years of seemingly innocent trade relationships and cultural exchanges. Looked at the tactical display showing the council fleet positions. Suddenly, those 47,000 ships didn't seem like such an overwhelming advantage. They seemed like targets, spread across space with human merchants and technicians aboard every vessel. "Admiral," he said, his voice carefully controlled, "begin security sweeps of all ships and facilities. Remove all human personnel immediately." "High Counselor, that will take days to complete, and we'll lose critical support services. Many of our systems depend on human-maintained equipment." Stared at the display for a long moment. The humans had spent 5 years positioning themselves throughout Council space, gaining access to everything, learning every weakness. And their diplomat still sat in her office playing card games, as calm as if she held all the winning hands. "Begin the sweeps anyway," he ordered, "and send additional reconnaissance ships to monitor human territory. I want to know what they're really hiding." As his officers hurried to carry out his orders, couldn't shake the feeling that it was already too late. The humans had been playing a different game all along, and the Council was just beginning to understand the rules. The 72-hour deadline came and went like any other Thursday afternoon. High Counselor watched the chronometer on his command bridge tick past the final moment. No surrender message arrived. No desperate pleas for mercy. No last-minute negotiations. Nothing. Admiral stood ready at the weapons control station. "High Counselor, the deadline has expired. Should we begin the attack?" Hesitated. Something felt wrong about the whole situation. His security sweeps had found human personnel throughout the Council fleet, but they had all left quietly when asked. No resistance, no protests, just polite cooperation. Even stranger, many systems began malfunctioning shortly after the humans departed. "Wait," he said, "let's see what they do first." As if summoned by his words, the communication system chimed. A transmission was coming from the human diplomatic station. "Put it through," ordered. Appeared on screen. She looked exactly the same as before, calm, professional, slightly apologetic. She sat at her desk with a fresh cup of coffee and what appeared to be a sandwich. "Good afternoon, High Counselor," she said. "Sorry for the delay in responding. I had to check with Earth about your proposal. Unfortunately, after careful consideration, we find your terms unacceptable." Felt his crystal body heat up with anger. "Then you choose war." "Oh no," said, taking a bite of her sandwich. "We choose negotiation. I've prepared a counter-proposal for your consideration." She pressed something on her desk. Data files began flooding the Council's communication systems. Watched in amazement as thousands of pages of documents appeared on his screens. "What is this?" he demanded. "Our terms for peaceful resolution," replied. "I think you'll find them quite reasonable." Admiral was already reading the files. His scales shifted from angry red to confused green to frightened white in a matter of seconds. "High Counselor," he whispered, "you need to see this." Pulled up the main document. The title read, "Proposed Galactic Reorganization Treaty." As he read further, his crystal structure began vibrating with disbelief. The humans weren't offering to withdraw from contested systems. They were demanding that the Council abandon 12 key star systems, including 3 major military installations. They wanted the hegemony to dismantle their primary weapons manufacturing facility. They insisted on quarterly compliance inspections of all Council military assets. But that wasn't the worst part. "They want us to pay reparations," Admiral said in a strangled voice, "for environmental damage, territorial violations, and, quote, aggressive posturing that disrupted interstellar commerce." Counselor's image flickered onto the screen. "This is impossible. They can't make demands of us. They have 30 ships." Looked up from her sandwich. 31, actually. We launched a new patrol ship last week. Nothing fancy, just routine maintenance of our defensive capabilities." "Defensive capabilities?" His voice rose to a painful pitch. "You're surrounded by 47,000 warships." "Yes, I noticed that," said. "Quite a gathering. Must be expensive to maintain that many ships in one place. I imagine your supply costs are enormous." Something cold settled in his core. "What do you mean?" Pulled up her own files. "Well, According to my calculations, a fleet that size requires approximately 2 million tons of food per day, 15 million units of fuel per week, and constant maintenance support for optimal combat effectiveness. She paused to sip her coffee. The interesting thing is, most of those supplies come from companies with significant human investment. Shipping, for example, handles 60% of your food logistics. Manufacturing produces 30% of your spare parts. Williams Technical Services maintains your communication arrays. Admiral was frantically checking his supply reports. His scales went completely white. The companies are all pulling their contracts, he reported in a hollow voice. Every human-associated business is terminating agreements immediately. They cite hostile work environment and safety concerns. Nodded sympathetically. That's unfortunate. I'm sure you can find replacement suppliers, though it might take some time to establish new contracts and delivery schedules. Began to understand. The humans hadn't been preparing for war. They had been preparing for siege. 5 years of patient trade relationships had made the Council military dependent on human-controlled supply chains. This is economic warfare, he accused. This is business, corrected. Private companies making decisions based on market conditions. We can't control what independent businesses choose to do. Counselor materialized on the screen, his energy form flickering with agitation. What about your military response? You cannot fight our entire fleet with 31 ships. Looked surprised. Fight? Who said anything about fighting? We're having a diplomatic discussion. She reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a photograph. It showed a young woman in a military uniform, smiling beside some kind of weapons system. That's my daughter, Sarah. She's a logistics coordinator for Earth Defense. She wanted me to pass along her compliments on your fleet formation. Very impressive tactical positioning. She showed another photograph. This one depicted a man in coveralls standing next to what looked like a massive industrial facility. And that's my nephew Tom. He works in asteroid mining. He was curious about your fuel consumption rates. Apparently, your fleet uses more energy in one day than most systems consume in a month. More photographs followed. Family members, friends, colleagues, all of them working in industries that somehow connected to military operations, resource extraction, or space logistics. The point is, continued, we've all been watching your preparations with great interest. It's been quite educational. Admiral leaned over his tactical display, studying readouts with growing horror. High Counselor, our fuel reserves are at 70% and dropping. Food supplies show critical shortages developing across all fleet groups, and our communication networks are reporting widespread malfunctions. Finished her sandwich and wiped her hands with a napkin. I should also mention that our counterproposal includes an addendum about environmental protection. Someone has been dumping industrial waste in the sector, and it's causing problems for the local wildlife. The space whales are getting indigestion. She attached another file to the transmission. We'll need that cleaned up within 30 days. I've included a list of approved waste disposal companies. Most of them are human-owned, but they offer very competitive rates. Stared at the screen, finally beginning to understand the scope of what had happened. The humans hadn't been preparing for war at all. They had been preparing for victory through entirely different means. You've been planning this for years, he said quietly. Smiled and picked up her coffee cup. Ambassador training is very thorough on Earth. We learn about logistics, psychology, economic systems, and cultural analysis. Poker is particularly useful for reading opponents. She leaned back in her chair, looking completely relaxed. We also learn patience. Sometimes the best move is to wait and let your opponents make the first mistake. The transmission ended, leaving the Council leadership staring at blank screens, while their mighty fleet slowly began falling apart around them. Admiral had enough. 3 days of watching his fleet slowly starve while the council argued about terms and conditions. His ships were reporting equipment failures, food shortages, and communication breakdowns. The humans sat in their tiny diplomatic station, drinking coffee and playing card games while 47,000 warships surrounded them. High Counselor, request permission to begin limited strikes against human installations, he growled during the morning briefing. This economic warfare must stop. Considered the request. His own patience was wearing thin. Very well, target their outer settlements. Something to demonstrate our seriousness without escalating to full-scale war. Smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Finally, some action. He selected 3 remote human outposts in different sectors and dispatched battle groups to each location. Swift, decisive strikes would show these upstart humans the consequences of defying the Council. The first target was Mining Station Alpha 7 in the sector. Watched through long-range sensors as his ships approached. The station appeared deserted, just a collection of metal platforms and storage containers orbiting a dead asteroid. Easy target, reported Captain from the lead ship. No defensive systems detected. Beginning attack run. Watched the tactical display as his ships moved into attack formation. Everything proceeded normally until they reached weapons range. Then something extraordinary happened. Ambassador appeared in the middle of empty space. She sat at a conference table that definitely had not been there moments before. She wore her usual diplomatic dress and had what appeared to be a fresh cup of coffee. Most impossibly, she was breathing normally in the vacuum of space, as if she was still sitting in her office. "Good morning, Admiral," she said cheerfully. "Beautiful day for fleet maneuvers, isn't it?" Captain's voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral, what are we looking at?" "Sensors show a human female sitting at a table in open space. This is impossible." Stared at his screens in disbelief. "Ambassador, how are you out there? What technology allows humans to survive in vacuum?" Sipped her coffee and looked puzzled. "Technology? Oh, you mean this?" She gestured to herself. "This isn't technology, Admiral, this is just good planning." She reached into a folder that somehow existed on the table and pulled out several documents. "I wanted to thank you for the advance warning about your military exercises. The 72-hour notice gave us exactly enough time to evacuate non-essential personnel and activate certain protocols we've developed over the years." "Protocols?" demanded. "Earth has fought 847 wars," explained patiently. "We've learned a few things about preparation and contingency planning. Would you like to see?" Without waiting for an answer, she began reading from her documents. Mining Station Alpha 7 was evacuated 60 hours ago. All personnel and equipment were relocated to secure facilities. The structures you see are empty shells designed to look occupied on long-range sensors. Checked his tactical readouts. The station still showed power signatures and what appeared to be normal operations. "Sensor ghosts," continued. "Holographic projections and automated systems. Quite convincing from a distance, wouldn't you agree?" She turned to another page. "Your second target, Research Outpost Beta 4, was similarly evacuated. The third target, Communications Hub Gamma 9, was never actually there at all. Just another hologram. We thought you might appreciate the strategic deception." Admiral felt his control slipping. "This is impossible. Our intelligence reports confirmed all 3 targets." Nodded sympathetically. "Yes, intelligence gathering is quite important in military operations. Speaking of which, I should probably mention that we've been monitoring your intelligence networks for some time now." She pulled out another document. This one was much thicker. "Captain Martinez of your Second Fleet, for example. He's been providing detailed reports on fleet movements and tactical planning for 18 months. Not for money, you understand. He just enjoys playing poker with our merchant crews." Scales turned ice blue. Captain Martinez was one of his most trusted officers. Lieutenant Commander of the Hegemony 3rd Battle Group has been equally helpful, continued. She's become quite fond of human coffee. Apparently, it helps her stay alert during long shifts monitoring council communications. The list went on. Officers, technicians, supply personnel, communications specialists, all providing information, most without even realizing it. A casual conversation here, a friendly card game there, small favors and social interactions that built trust and extracted intelligence. How many? Whispered. Flipped through several pages. Oh, we don't think of it as espionage, Admiral. We prefer cultural exchange. Humans are naturally social creatures. We like making friends, sharing stories, learning about other species. She smiled warmly. The wonderful thing about friendship is that people want to share things with you. Their hopes, their fears, their work schedules, their technical manuals, their military deployment orders. Realize the scope of what had happened. Every poker game, every shared meal, every casual conversation had been intelligence gathering. Not aggressive spying, but patient, friendly relationship building that gradually mapped every aspect of council operations. Admiral, Captain reported, we're experiencing system malfunctions. Weapons offline, navigation compromised, communications failing. Checked another document. Ah yes, that would be the maintenance issues. I'm afraid when we evacuated our technical personnel, some of your systems lost their support staff. She looked apologetic. Chief Engineer Williams serviced your weapons targeting systems. Technician Johnson maintained your navigation computers. Specialist handled your communications arrays. They were all very dedicated workers, but safety regulations required their immediate evacuation once hostilities were declared. More reports flooded in from across the Council fleet. Critical systems failing, equipment malfunctioning, entire ships losing basic operational capabilities. Years of dependence on human technical expertise suddenly revealed itself as a strategic vulnerability. You sabotaged our ships, accused. Looked offended. Admiral, I'm shocked. Our personnel followed all proper maintenance procedures. If your equipment is failing, perhaps you should check the warranty information. She reached into her folder again and produced what appeared to be a maintenance manual. Section 12, Subsection 4 states that all repairs and upgrades must be performed by certified technicians using approved components. Failure to maintain proper service agreements may result in equipment failure and voided warranties. Stared at her in growing horror. The humans hadn't sabotaged anything. They had simply designed their repairs and upgrades to require ongoing human support. When that support was withdrawn, everything stopped working. This is still an act of war, he protested. Shook her head sadly. This is a violation of service contracts, Admiral, completely different legal framework. I've included complaint forms for your convenience. She stood up from the conference table, somehow still breathing in vacuum. I should return to my office now. We're hosting a delegation from the Merchant Guild this afternoon, and they're very interested in discussing new trade opportunities. She paused and looked directly through the screen. Oh, and Admiral, you might want to check your fuel supplies again. I'm afraid our supplier contracts included some rather specific clauses about delivery schedules and payment terms. The image vanished, leaving staring at empty space while his fleet continued its slow deterioration around him. In the distance, the small human diplomatic station continued its peaceful orbit, completely undisturbed by the massive military force that was supposed to be threatening it. For the first time in his military career, Admiral began to understand what it meant to be outmaneuvered by a superior opponent. The humans hadn't won through superior firepower or advanced technology. They had won through patience, preparation, and an understanding of warfare that went far beyond simple military tactics. They had turned the Council's own strength into weakness, and done it all with smiles and friendly conversation over card games. The once mighty Council fleet drifted helplessly through space like a collection of broken toys. Admiral sat on his bridge watching damage reports flood his screens, weapons systems offline, navigation computers crashed, life support running on emergency power, food stores nearly empty, fuel reserves at critical levels. And through it all, the small human diplomatic station continued its peaceful orbit, unchanged and undisturbed. "Status report," ordered wearily. 17 ships completely non-operational, his aide reported. Another 43 showing critical system failures. The rest are operating at less than 30% capacity. "Sir, we can't fight in this condition. We can barely fly." Nodded grimly. In 3 days, the human woman had done more damage to his fleet than any enemy in Council history. Without firing a single shot, without launching one missile, without deploying any weapons at all. The communication system chimed. High Counselor appeared on screen, his crystal body dim with exhaustion. "Admiral, what is your current operational status?" he asked. "Effectively 0, High Counselor. We're trapped here until we can arrange for outside technical support and supply deliveries." Light grew even dimmer. "There won't be any outside support. The humans have systematically withdrawn from every maintenance contract, supply agreement, and technical partnership across Council space. Our entire infrastructure is beginning to collapse." The scope of the disaster was becoming clear. For 5 years, humanity had quietly integrated itself into every aspect of Council operations, not through conquest or intimidation, but through simple business relationships and friendly cooperation. Now that integration revealed itself as complete dependence. "High Counselor," said quietly, "I recommend we consider their terms." Before could respond, the communication system activated again. Appeared on screen, looking as calm and professional as always. She sat at her desk with her usual coffee cup and what appeared to be a stack of official documents. "Good evening," she said cheerfully. "I hope you're having a pleasant day despite the technical difficulties." "Ambassador," said through gritted crystal teeth, "what are your terms for ending this situation?" Looked surprised. "Ending it? Oh, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The situation has already ended." She held up an official-looking document with multiple seals and signatures. As of 1 hour ago, the Galactic Council voted unanimously to dissolve itself and establish the Terran Administrative Zone. I have the signed articles of surrender right here. Felt his world spin. That's impossible, the Council would never. The Council voted from their home systems, explained patiently. When their fleets began experiencing operational difficulties, their governments became concerned about defensive capabilities. Admiral from your second fleet delivered the final vote himself. She turned the document around so they could see the signatures. Quite unanimous, really. All 12 species agreed that the current situation was unsustainable and that new management was required. Crystal structure flickered with disbelief. What new management? Smiled and adjusted her diplomatic badge. The old Council insignia was gone, replaced with a small Earth symbol surrounded by stars. "Allow me to reintroduce myself. Director of Galactic Compliance for the Terran Administrative Zone. It's a new position, but I think I'm qualified for it." She stood up and moved to a larger desk that definitely hadn't been there before. The office around her had expanded, with additional furniture, communication equipment, and what appeared to be a full staff of assistants working quietly in the background. "My first official act was to establish emergency supply operations for stranded Council fleets," she continued. "Can't have military personnel suffering due to administrative errors." Relief flickered across Admiral's features. "You'll restore our operational capabilities." "Of course." Shipping is already en route with food and fuel supplies. Manufacturing will have technical teams aboard your ships within 6 hours. Williams Technical Services has agreed to resume maintenance contracts under the new administration. Sat down at her new desk and opened a thick folder. There will be some changes to operational procedures, naturally. All military activities must be pre-approved by the Compliance Office. Fleet movements require proper documentation. Weapons testing needs environmental impact assessments. She looked up with a helpful smile. Don't worry, the paperwork is quite straightforward. I've the process considerably from the old council system. Found his voice. What about our governments, our sovereignty, our territorial claims? All protected under the new framework, assured him. The administrative zone recognizes the cultural independence and local governance rights of all member species. You'll find the terms quite generous. She pulled out another document. Of course, there are certain universal standards that apply to everyone. Environmental protection, worker safety, trade regulations, peaceful dispute resolution. Standard stuff, really. Admiral studied her face, looking for some sign of triumph or satisfaction. He found none. She looked like someone discussing routine administrative matters, not the conquest of galactic civilization. Why? He asked finally. Why go through all this elaborate preparation? You could have simply demanded surrender from the beginning. Consider the question seriously. Because that's not how humans approach problems, Admiral. We prefer solutions that benefit everyone involved. She gestured to the reports on her desk. The old council system was inefficient. 12 different military commands, dozens of conflicting trade regulations, constant territorial disputes that wasted resources. The galaxy needed better organization. So you decided to provide it, said flatly. We decided to offer our services, corrected. Earth has considerable experience with multicultural administration, peaceful integration, and resource management. We thought we could help. She opened her appointment calendar. Speaking of which, I have meetings scheduled with each council species to discuss their specific needs under the new system. I'm particularly excited about the cultural exchange programs we're planning. Looked at them both with genuine enthusiasm. The hegemony has fascinating artistic traditions that would translate beautifully to human markets. The ethereal collective's energy manipulation techniques could revolutionize our power generation systems. The possibilities for mutual benefit are endless. Admiral realized that this had never been about conquest at all. The humans genuinely believed they were helping, improving the galaxy through better management and organization. They had approached galactic politics the same way they apparently approached everything else, as a problem to be solved through patient preparation and careful planning. What happens now? He asked. Checked her schedule. Now we get your ships operational and your crews fed. Then we begin the transition process. I've prepared comprehensive briefings on new procedures, administrative protocols, and cultural integration programs. She paused and looked at them both. Oh, and I should mention, we're instituting mandatory poker lessons for all senior administrative personnel. It's excellent training for reading people and understanding negotiation dynamics. A small smile crossed her face. Plus, it's fun, and if we're all going to be working together, we might as well enjoy ourselves. The transmission ended, leaving two former military leaders staring at blank screens, while their conquered fleet waited for rescue by the species they had tried to destroy. In the distance, the human diplomatic station continued its peaceful orbit, but now it was the administrative center of the galaxy's new government, run by a woman who had defeated the most powerful military force in galactic history by offering to share coffee and teaching people to play cards. Admiral leaned back in his command chair and began to laugh. It wasn't hysterical laughter or bitter laughter. It was the laughter of someone who finally understood the joke. Humans didn't conquer civilizations. They improved them, and somehow that was far more terrifying than any weapon they could have built. Director of Galactic Compliance sat in her expanded office reviewing applications from across the galaxy. Species that had never contacted Earth before were requesting permission to establish trade relations, cultural exchanges, and diplomatic missions. Her first official day in the new job was going quite well. She approved each application with a personal note. "Welcome to the neighborhood. Coffee's on the house."